Welcome, everyone. We will start shortly. We're still getting people joining us. Welcome to this webinar of the ICA, the International Crime Prevention through Environmental Design Association. The ICA is a professional, non-profit, global organization for all things related to CPTED. This webinar is one of many programs run by the ICA for preventing crime and creating safer places. My name is Madame Guignach, and I'm Executive Director of the ICA. So before we start, I invite you to take advantage of the many programs we offer by joining the ICA. You can use the link provided on the screen or contact us if you have any questions. Also, a brief disclaimer that the views expressed in this presentation belong to our guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the position of the ICA. The ICA does not assume legal responsibility for the speaker statements, the intellectual property, or the information presented today. Okay, let's begin with the webinar. I'm excited to welcome all of you, our attendees who are with us today, and our panelists. We have with us Vanessa v.grob, an architect who operates in Africa and Europe, Dr. Mercedes.escudero, who is Regional Director for Latin America, and our Director from India, Dr. Manjari Kapoor. Also, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat box, which will remain open until our panelists start with their presentation. I will now hand over to our Director, Dr. Manjari Kapoor, will moderate today's webinar. Okay, so Manjari, over to you and have a good webinar.
Many thanks, Matea, and a very good evening and namaste from India to all our viewers from across the globe and time zones. On behalf of the International CPTED Association, we welcome all our viewers from across the globe to a discussion on multiculturalism, inclusivity in the context of CPTED. Before we plunge into the session, I'll just give you a broad overview of the next 90 minutes. We will have each panelist make a short presentation of their interpretation of today's topic, and this will be followed by a very brief panel discussion on some of the matters raised by many of our registrants during the registration process. This will be followed by a Q&A session, which will be open to all viewers, and some general instructions to the viewers before we start. The questions can be added in the chat box at any time, and they will be taken up in the Q&A session. Please highlight for whom the question is directed, if any in particular, and also the details of who is asking the question. We will also be taking up many of the questions received at the time of registration, but we may not be able to address all the questions, and for all such queries, we will be happy to engage with you after the webinar by mail or phone or whatever medium is convenient. You can write in to our contact details mentioned on the promotional materials at any time, or our personal IDs we will share during the presentation. So now, allow me to get into the presentation and give you a very brief introduction to our esteemed panel. Vanessa, you can start sharing your screen, please. Please note that our panel today consists of 3 eminent CPTED thinkers from different cultures, regions, and languages even. And yet, they have very kindly consented and put in a lot of effort and rehearsals to present in English for the benefit of all. This is the spirit of CPTED and the ICA that celebrates all cultures and diversity. Further, please make note that our panel today is completely biased towards one gender and an ode to the feminine spirit just 10 days before the International Women's Day. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first eminent panelist today, architect Vanessa v.grob. She is from the European and the African region. She's an architect specialized in sustainable architecture and regenerative practitioner. She designs in a very bioclimatic and eco-friendly way, and her work has taken her from France to Italy, Chile, Guadeloupe, French Guiana, Ecuador, Algeria, Burundi, and many such African territories. This is what makes her unique, and as she brings a unique combination of experience of CPTED practices in the European region and the African region. Welcome, Vanessa, and over to you for your first presentation.
Hello, everybody. Do you hear me, Manjari? Everything is okay?
Yes, Vanessa, you can switch on your camera, please.
I can't. It tell me that you have to switch me out in. Sorry. Okay, like that's better. Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. It's an honor for me to be here in this presentation for the International CPTED Association. I will present you. Oops. Okay. We will begin with. Okay. So the integrative approach by CPTED. So I will show you some of my experience, and I will be happy to ask some questions after this presentation. So let's talk about some definition. It's when we are talk about inclusivity, what we are talking about, why this word is so important. So the inclusivity, the dictionary says that is the practice or policy of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be included or marginalized, such as those having physical or mental disabilities or belonging to other minority groups. Inclusivity is important in our work, in our world also. Stakeholders. When we talk about doing a project in public space, we talk about also stakeholders. So what are the stakeholders that we use to engage in a project in CPTED? Stakeholders are the users, are the designers, are the governments, the investors, the social association, the civil population, the providers, the human being, the native expert, the nature, the land, the territory. We don't have to engage a project with if we want to be inclusive. Don't take care of all the ecosystem that is part of the project. So I will remind some principle of CPTED and how they can be part of the inclusivity. Natural access control, it's clarify and define the access, give a space where to enter and be in touch with other person, suitable outer illumination so that all the people can be and enter on this space. Natural surveillance. The inclusivity is that we are street on eyes on the street. You can see on the photos that when we are part of the public space, we can see each other. We can use the space, and we can be catch up between neighbors, so we can see what's happened. And these eyes are important to inclusivity, because we can see if someone is not treated well in this public space. Territorial reinforcement allow people to have a defined space where to be in. Even minority that doesn't have any space can be welcome in a new special place made to be include their activity on the public space. That is an evolution of the territorial reinforcement with new cultures that arrive in some countries. Maintenance. Maintenance is important in the inclusivity because we don't invite someone to our house if our house is not well organized, it's not clean. So to be welcome in a space, we have to keep it in a good maintenance and in good shape to include all the people and can be and come to see this space. And then we arrive to the main point for me and the inclusivity is the participatory design. In a good prepared participatory design, all the stakeholders of a place will be included, even the opposite one, in a way to understand the different point of view and the feeling of everybody in the place. With the participatory design, we can take all the opinion, we can be aware of what's happening. If we don't listen to the people that live there and be there, the native expert, we cannot have the cues of the project. So it's, for me, when we talk about inclusivity, one of the main points to be treated. So let's take some lectures of inclusivity. Inclusivity can be treated by the design, participatory design, the dialogue, the stakeholders that are part of the project, the appropriate design, the understanding of the ecosystem, but not the ecosystem only of the people, but also the nature, the territory, and the land. Create collective image of the potential of the site. That could be do with the inclusivity by the design. Here we have a project when we were working in Santiago, Chile, that we do the design of all the important projects that must come in the next years with the neighbors, with the government, with the urban statement, and we did a lot of neighbor survey that were to have in mind what are the problems of the people and also what are the quality of the neighbor. We did some exhibition of projects from other countries to build a collective imagination that allows us to give some examples of so how can the public space be treated in other countries, in other climate condition, in other way, in a way to in a way that the people can imagine a new vision and also say that what is not good for them. We did the political presentation of the project, and after 2 days of the participatory design, we draw, as you say, you can see now on we do all the notes, all the drawings, each idea, each comment, each negative and positive comment, each quality of the place was taken and put in this explanation to give it to the city major. And the urban planning department of the city took this material and used it in the incoming year's planification. So all these ideas, all this sense, all these dreams of the neighbors about their own territory were taking part for the planification of the next years. So inclusivity by the users. What's mean this? We have so many different users in a public space. So and they have to live in the same place sometimes. So we have civil association, neighbor, minority, children, skaters, strikers, also manifestants, businessmen and women. So when we talk about this inclusivity by the user, it's to create the space where all different users can be on this public space. So you have the skaters in this photo and the children that are in the same place in different moments, in different events that happen. You can manifest and also just pass through. This is part of the use of the space that is important and is to qualify it by the different user that will give them the expression of the moment. And we have also in this inclusivity, we talk about flexibility. Users and flexibility are important, but the flexibility is done by the design. Is how you design one public space to allow those different users. So one unique space, different activity, different timing for the activities, because you don't have the children on the morning because they are at school, but on the weekend you will have it. You don't have a concert of singers and in the morning, you will have it on the afternoon, but you have the same space that will be used for this. So this flexibility is aim each person to be part of the space. So we can see some example of this flexibility and the Republic's place in Paris, in France. So also this flexibility allows you to use the street as terrace in some moments. If you are taking off the cars, and you can use it by night to be the eyes on the street and be also the public space for the other people when the car are not there. So this flexibility allows you really to use the public space and to be part of. So this flexibility also is done, but how you can manage the space and how you can propose different parts. In this photos, you can see the same space that it was a little bit abandoned in one moment. 1 year later, it's the support for street art and artistic expression, and then some years after, it begins a place when you can see there's a coffee and there's also some trees that were put on this space. And they allowed this wall to be always an expression of street art on this place. But this flexibility was changing also about how the population were using the space and how they were well doing it. So talking about multicultural approach, as you can see on the last project, we study, propose, build in different countries, set that can be applied on different culture and different population. The main point is to respect the individuality and the richness of each place, to propose the appropriate solution to prevent criminality by the design. The multicultural approach is done also by it's depend also on the practitioners. The practitioner will give this point as a main issue when you are treating and working with the participatory design in taking this local importance with big points that are done by the CPTED approach. So just to finish the last question, that it's an open question, that it's in the opposite of this participatory approach that I'm talking about. And this was a manifest that was done in the Biennale of Architecture in Venice some years ago. So they opened this question: is it possible to create a public space in a private commission? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vanessa. That was very nice, and I'm sure our viewers enjoyed that too. Now I'll call upon Mercedes to please share her presentation and her screen while I have the honor of introducing her to our viewers from across the globe. So Mercedes is a communicologist and a specialist in security, risk analysis, and socio-urban interventions. She is the regional director for Latin America of the ICA and the president of CPTED Mexico. She is the founding partner, researcher, and general director of the Study Center in Citizen and Human Security. And she has worked with various governments in Mexico and is an international level lecturer and commentator, specializing in security and prevention of violence and crime in various media. So we will call upon Mercedes now to share the experience from the Spanish, Hispanic, and Latin American point of view, bringing that culture into our webinar today. Welcome, Mercedes, and over to you.
Thank you, Manjari. Good afternoon and good morning, all. Thank you for being in this webinar, and apologize because my English is not perfect, but I will do my best. Cancun case, project safety, mobility, and community construction, building safe cities and territory of peace, more important in Mexico for violence. In violence more all in these rates. Sorry. How CPTED helped in this pilot project Cancun case? Because they explain this picture. In this image, we can observe the growth of the city of Cancun, which has considerably reduced the natural areas, and the difference have been very marked between the tourist areas and the homes of the natives of the place. We can see the city level so different that people live. In Cancun exist 3 levels for cities. How the CPTED helped in the pilot project Cancun case? Here, before beginning, I comment that multiculturalism is considered synonymous with ethnic pluralism and cultural pluralism. Multiculturalism promotes the maintenance of the distinctiveness of people, cultures, and contrast with the settlement policies such as social integration, cultural assimilation, and racial segregation. The central problem is that multiculturalism continues to treat all different groups as minorities. Cancun is a multicultural city from the planning and for what it was designed, an important tourist destination at a global level. In these photos, we see how in the 70 years, the territory was deserted and who it's with the hotel buildings, archaeological zones, tourists, and natives of the place. Cancun receives year for year tourists of more than 100 nationalities. It's a very young city, 50 years old. CPTED helped used to integrate the natives of the place and the foreigners who have arrived from other countries to live here. The growth that this area has is economic and social and multicultural, but the economic, cultural, and social gaps have been marked more. This problem, there has been a search for this native place to have work opportunities, and the identity and community culture of the Mayan area is returned to show it as an important attraction for tourists. CPTED is very necessary and to redefine the social relationships urban planning with security and prevention, in addition to avoiding falling into discriminatory practices. CPTED Mexico ICA chapter is working on a project following the guidelines of the ISO 22341 with the CPTED methodology in the city to reconcile neighbors and improve the quality of life for minority groups such as the indigenous. The ISO CPTED guidelines, due to its transversality, the assessment of the quality of life of people in cities should be carried, and social indicators are established to comply with the global agenda of the Unsustainable Development Goals, with the ISO 37120 and the standard 22,000. The ISO standard 22341 has helped to make up the management team and the oversight body more important for the audit, as well as performing the risk analysis, determining of the investment and resource. It's performed with the ISO 31000 matrix mode and failure effect mode. The space marked with the red circle is the intervention area for the pilot project. The territory is located at kilometer 0 of the hotel zone and its impact on nearby neighborhoods. Unlike all ISO standard, quality guidelines are established to carry out an intervention using, in this case, the CPTED methodology to be inclusive. Respect the culture of the community, get the participation of all stakeholders with the objective of community cohesion, and develop a safe territory with peaceful and harmonic coexistence. Therefore, importance of creating management group and the oversight to obtain the CPTED evidence that allows use to catalog as good practice, complying with at least 59 basic indicators globally indicate on the local agenda, which included in the rules and guidelines that the intervention process with ISO CPTED must follow. More important, strategic alliance. To do this, we need participation of the native community of the new cultures that become established in Cancun and work in coordination with the governmental security and protection areas. More important, the project. Project evidence. CPTED has helped us to socially reconcile the neighbors of suburb and to get them to participate in the proposed action, being designed to improve security and a sensation of fear in this area. More important, the dreams persons. We use the Cloud of Dreams tool with the developer architects in the pilot program are in their dreams have a great match with the community in this area. Design of the modality on community playing with the action of integral and adaptation of common space. It's proposed that the street have furniture to mount exhibitions of painting by artists from the area, become a prominent or meeting point with the social connectivity, and reduce the use of motorized vehicles, in addition to encourage local trade. CPTED helps design public space that are safe, inclusive, and that take care of the resource and culture of the community. We want this street to have neighbors living in our harmony. We want all the neighbors to come together and they use this public space. Working with CPTED establish active measures to combat racism, discrimination, and environmental xenophobia so that equitable conditions are developed in the territorial space of the city in order to protect discriminate population from all forms of violence, including institutional violence. Promote action of returns and recollection of displaced population in condition of dignity and security. Promote the participation of social, governmental, and academic actors. Adopt a participatory and inclusive approach, in particular care for victims of discrimination. Promote community policies of primary attention to safety and health, considering differential impacts between men and women, and promote the vision of gender and inclusion of women in space of leaderships in the decision-making group, such as Macarena Rao, President of International CPTED Association, Meteya Minyak, Executive Director of the ICA, Menjari Kapoor. In Mexico, community of women in security and operations are being formed due to the high rates of feminicide in Mexico. Create a group of specialized works coming from various sectors who represent organizations that may be involved type situation, police, education, sector, young workers, social workers, civil society organizations, responsible for coordination action for social inclusion and reconciliation, and thus create safe, inclusive, and peaceful territories. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mercedes. That was really informative and eye-opening, the kind of work you've been doing at Cancun. Amazing work. Thanks so much from the webinar team at ICA. And so now we come to the last segment of the presentations, and that is going to be my last presentation as a moderator and as a representative of India and Asia region. So viewers, I'm Dr. Manjari Khanna Kapoor. I'm a professional architect, academician, founder president of the Association for Building Security India, and the director at International CPTED Association. I'm a security integrationist working towards the collaboration of architects, planners with security men to achieve better urban security for ourselves and our future generations. So as we notice, our title today has three main components to understand before we start discussing: CPTED, multiculturalism, and inclusivity. I will be touching upon four aspects of the topic: how CPTED is relevant across cultures, regions, and maybe the entire globe; how CPTED works better with diversity; that CPTED works best when all stakeholders are included and involved; and lastly, how CPTED offers opportunities and excuses almost to end exclusion. So to showcase the fact that CPTED is relevant across the globe, across cultures, regions, races, and languages, see on your screens how the ICA umbrella is bringing together CPTED thinkers from diverse cultures. The CPTED movement, having begun in North America, has reasonable presence in Europe, be it the UK, Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, Germany, Sweden, or Slovenia. Then it moved to Australia, where it flourishes today. And now the CPTED spirit is lighting up lives in the Hispanic regions of Latin America. And gradually, research has spread to Asian traditional cultures like those in Malaysia, South Korea, Philippines, and India, where my research shows that CPTED principles are deeply embedded in the Indian heritage and tradition. The methodologies are not new to the Indian practices and culture, but just being rediscovered and resurrected by way of CPTED. Most of you may be aware that India itself is a multicultural state divided into 28 states and 8 union territories, almost each one with a distinct culture, language, dress, food, festivals, etc., etc. Within these, there are 6 officially recognized religions that are broadly interspersed, compounding the diversity. So you could have the region of Punjab with its own set of Punjabi Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and so on and so forth. And another set of Marathis, Hindus, Muslim, Christians, Gujaratis, and so on and so forth. So the 1.3 billion Indians comprise 7 races in all, ranging from Indo-Aryans, which are like me, who came in through West Asia, to Mongoloids in the states that border China, and Dravidians, who were the indigenous people who were pushed south by the Aryans, like me. So within India, we have about 121 languages spoken, of which 22 are official languages, and there are 19,500 dialects in all. So you can imagine India itself works on many levels of multicultural planes, and it is not just desirable, but a necessary aspect in India. And I can assure you, if CPTED did not promote or allow for this to happen, then CPTED could not have prospered in India, it would perish. But like many other developing countries, probably the most significant of all is the socio-economic disparity, the deep divide between rich and the poor, the have and the have-nots. The way the systems discriminate, and CPTED is only one of the equalizers. So I give you here an example. On your screens is a picture of a luxury high-end gated community in a suburb of Delhi. Please notice that the gates are open and ajar for the residents and their visitors who drive through in their swanky cars, and most often don't even notice that the guard room is devised at the same time to screen, check, and nowadays even sanitize the lower class service providers or domestic help. These exclusionists and discriminators have been denounced by CPTED for decades now, forcing many urban planners across the world to rethink this radically discriminatory developmental model. And these exclusionary developments do nothing towards CPTED. They are living in selfish isolation, contributing nothing to the surveillance, access control, territoriality, or maintenance of their neighborhood or city. On the other hand, compare this with the traditional neighborhoods of traditional cities like Delhi, Mumbai, where the way of life integrates not only people from all cultures, but also all socio-economic strata in an interwoven fabric which is interdependent, not restricted to CPTED. So for example, see in the first picture on your left, while you have high-end, very upmarket condos on the right of the street, it is serviced by vendors and hawkers from the lower section. These are the eyes on the street, reiterating their ownership of their workspace by way of staring, watching, noticing, and keeping an eye on the entire neighborhood. Add to this the aspect that the government's neighborhood watch scheme encourages keeping a watch on your neighbor and your community. Our research shows that in a multicultural community, people are generally wary of people from diverse backgrounds. They may not question others from their own community, but will tend to approach people from different backgrounds with more suspicion and maybe even caution. This is vital for CPTED and crime prevention, and even counter-terror initiatives, as has been proven in Delhi. Unfortunately, the converse is also true. So when you have homogeneous neighborhoods with residents from same ideologies and beliefs, this can become a very dangerous weapon in the hands of the wrong powers or vested interests. I will now play this video of a neighborhood predominated by a particular sect of people. In the early days of COVID, the misinformation and myths propagated by the religious leaders of this homogeneous community conveyed a sense of disbelief in the concept of the pandemic. And they thought it was an attack on their religious ideologies, beliefs, and sentiments. This move, motivated by vested interests or political agendas, spurred the people to attack the very health workers who were visiting this marginalized neighborhood in an effort to spread awareness and preventive therapy. Just look at how the concentration of devious homogeneous ideologies can create a monster of the same community cohesion that is one of the greatest principles of CPTED.
गार्ड बुलाने आ रहा है बार बार ये लोग चूतिए।
As you saw, they were pelting stones and brickbats on the health workers who were coming to save the very same people from COVID. This is an obvious hazard of lack of multiculturalism and the critical need for heterogeneity for CPTED principles to function in their desired manner. So this is a great example of how multiculturalism is critical for the correct manifestation of CPTED. Another example of multiculturalism and inclusivity in India is from the case study of Lajpat Nagar, that was Lajpat Nagar Bazaar, that was presented at the ICA conference at Kanpur. This is a marketplace that not only serves all possible cultures and regions of India through the day, but by evening, the same street becomes a night market for the asylum seekers from Afghanistan and other troubled regions. Not only is this boosting their own economy, boosting the eyes on street, but also mainstreaming these troubled, very marginalized sections and keeping them away from negative forces. It offers them employment, making the market looked over through the late hours, and most importantly, makes them feel like they belong to this new home in their troubled times. This is vital to feel included. You can see that the streets just adjoining these areas have metamorphosized themselves into little Kabul or little parts of Afghanistan, making the place comfortable, inclusive, and accepting a new culture in its fold. Our research in the diverse Indian context finds that in India today, regional differences are no longer important, though religion and caste may continue to dominate ideologies for political or other power agendas. However, there is one aspect that is now relevant at the individual, familial, neighborhood, and global level, and that is socio-economic. Almost everyone belonging to a particular socio-economic class would have similar experiences of equitability. In that respect, inclusion of all classes is becoming as critical across socioeconomics as it is across cultures, languages, races, or nationalities. In fact, the moot point proposed by our research is that for neighborhoods to be free of crime and fear of crime, and for them to be comprehensively sustainable, there needs to be a cross-section of all socioeconomic classes functioning as a socio-economically self-sufficient unit. So this is also a form of multiculturalism and manifestation of inclusivity at an all-new level. To conclude, I would like to sum up that in our experience and research into CPTED, in the multicultural context of India, we find that multiculturalism enhances CPTED action in terms of offering better eyes on the street and better territorial reinforcement. It also promotes inclusivity and discourages ideological agendas. So it's almost critical to democracy and liberty. On the other hand, CPTED itself treats all stakeholders as equals, making no distinctions at all. It is a common sense science based on human behavior, which does not discriminate on any lines. In fact, it encourages inclusion, to promote eyes, irrespective of whom they belong to promote community participation without any restrictions on the membership, to enhance feeling of ownership and belonging, to evolve societies free of marginalization, and establish socio-economic sustainability on its path to freedom from fear and crime. That is all from me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming into this webinar today and gracing the occasion. Thank you so much. So while we wait for questions to come in, okay, we already have some questions coming in, but I will start with one question, which would be for the panel, which was received by us at the time of registration, and it is a very, very pertinent question. It is from one of us. It is from Bo Grunland, of one of our directors at ICA. And Bo writes to us, can we have Vanessa and Mercedes, please? You can switch on your cameras, please, for our viewers. Yeah, so he says, beware of making CPTED an ideology. Where are the scientific proofs that CPTED concepts are universally valid? He says, I live in Scandinavia 30 years ago. We had a culturally rather homogeneous population, and CPTED principles adapted to that, including attempts at reducing social segregation in our city. Then we got mass immigration from clan cultures, parts of the world, and crime exploded. We got a lot of people who don't want to be included in the culture. They have migrated to. How can CPTED solve that? My thinking on these issues so far are presented in my ICA contribution. So I put a question to both our panelists. Can you give an example of how you would say that CPTED is universally valid? It could be from your region, culture, or any other experience. Vanessa, I will call on you first.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. And it's, I will say that there was, I would take an example of another thinker. And the last century, the architectural modern movement bring five principles of architecture to be used all over the world. And there was a principle that will be will be used all over the world. And when this modern movement begin to build, they begin with this precept that were very strict, and then this each of the construction begin to be transformed by the context, by the culture, by the people that were living. So you cannot say that the modern architecture in India is the same as the modern architecture in Europe or in South America. So in each country, the context, it's so important in the application of CPTED principle as it is of any universal concept. It will be used by the people that are living in. So you can, it will be adapted, it will be contextualized, and it will be appropriate to this. They begin ownership of this principle that will be universal and at the same time will be local, because of the people that are working on. I think it's my point of view of this interpretation. Your micro, Mandari.
Sorry, Mercedes, would you like to take the question now? Would you want to answer in English or Spanish?
Spanish, Maca,
please go ahead.
Support for me. Okay.
Yeah.
Es muy importante finalmente cómo CPTED se adapta y es casuístico en cada territorio por contexto, por la cuestión de la cultura y la inclusión. Lo que yo hoy vivo es tener que trabajar no solamente con indígenas del lugar, sino con gente que viene de la India, gente que viene de Europa y que se está estableciendo en Cancún.
Mercedes says that CPTED is very useful to adapt to local cases. CPTED is case by case. So she's using the CPTED methodology to work with different immigrants that are there in Cancun with much success. Immigrants from Europe, from India, from different parts of the world that are living all together and are a very relevant key actor in a CPTED methodology.
Sobre todo para el diseño, como comentaba Vanessa, porque cada uno trae diferentes expectativas de lo que quiere en el territorio.
And especially for the design process, each of those immigrants have different ideas of what they want to see in the territories. So in that sense, CPTED is a very useful tool and methodology.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mercedes. I will also add my 2 cents to this. So like I showed in my presentation and I mentioned, you see, immigration and cultures moving and mingling and blending is probably something that we see across history. So probably what I call myself an Indian, but like I said, I'm from the Aryan race. So I came somewhere from the Middle East, probably somewhere many, many centuries ago. So I stake a claim to India now, but probably the Dravidians, who were the indigenous people and who were pushed south by multiple invasions by Aryans across centuries, are probably the original people, and rightfully they should kick me out if it's not my land. But that's not how, that's history. The people move and blend and new cultures are formed and new evolutions happen, and there are new races which develop by the merger of different races. So like the example I showed in my presentation, if for whatever reason we have asylum seekers coming from Afghanistan, Sudan, Syria, and all those places and settling, it's part of the human movement, it's part of the evolutionary process. And I don't think we are anybody, as long as, I mean, we are humans finally at the end of the day, and we must look at our common denomination as humans, as animals, as equal owners or with equal territorial rights over the planet Earth. I think that is the bottom line. You cannot say these outsiders are bringing in crime and there was no crime before that. The important thing is to not marginalize anybody. Marginalization of new or old populations will always lead to crime. And that is my submission. And I think as far as the question is that how is CPTED universally valid, I think through my presentation briefly and my many researches shown over so many ICA conferences, I have shown that CPTED is definitely traditionally embedded into the genetics of the Indian culture. So can't go into that in more detail than that. I will also take one more question, which was in the registration, but first I'll take one of the live questions, which is here from Tim Pasco. He says, we see gated communities growing across the world and justified because of security. What would be your view on this regarding CPTED and inclusion? So I will put this to Vanessa. Would you like to answer that?
I will sorry, gated communities that they are going out of the city or the territory. That is mean? Sorry,
no, like I showed that gated communities are basically built on the concept of exclusion, and they are very exclusionary.
Okay.
That
to try to understand the question. Sorry.
Yeah. So would you like to? Yeah. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Yes. I think that we have always this discussion in CPTED. It's about open gates or and open the spaces or closing it to be more secure and more safe, because in our mind we think we can in the human mind we think that closing everything, it could be, we can keep it and we can keep it without changing, but the world is always changing, the energy is always changing, so we don't you cannot keep something. It's like the Berber dicton that say that if you try to have in your hand one part of the desert, you will have some grains of the sand. If you open your hand, you will have all the desert on your hand. So it's opening or closing. I think that opening will show you how you can share the things, and this is a human evolution that CPTED is always promoting from the beginning. So I think that we can talk with them.
I would like to clap for that, Vanessa. That's really well said. I love the phrase you gave. That's excellent. I love that. And Mercedes, you would be very happy to know that there is a question in Spanish for you. I will try in my really horrible attempt to speak Spanish. Or Maka, would you like to read it from the question bank? It's the last question on the question bank.
Yes, no problem, no problem. Let me see.
Don't want to embarrass Spanish here audiences.
Yes. It's from Ana Almecija from Spain, from Barcelona. Hello, Ana. And I will read in Spanish and then the translation. Me preocupa que no se garantice la inclusión cuando hablamos de personas con discapacidades, sobre todo aquellas a las que es complicado acceder o no tienen muchas posibilidades de comunicar sus necesidades específicas. Hay que reivindicar la importancia de procurar llegar también a esas personas. Anna says that she is very worried about the design that doesn't consider the disabled people that cannot move themselves in a city with a very not inclusive design. So that's the main concern of Anna from Spain. No sé qué quieres decir al respecto, Mercy.
Sí, y aquí también complementando hasta la pregunta anterior de Bohm, tiene que ver con incluir a todas las personas. Yo mostré en mi presentación algunas fotografías donde están las calles vacías. Están vacías porque además no están las condiciones para caminar, para personas de tercera edad, para personas con discapacidad motriz, y están en algunos fraccionamientos o esta parte de condominios cerrados. Entonces, lo que se está haciendo acá en Cancún con la propuesta de nosotros con CPTED es que se abran los accesos y los espacios comunes, invitemos a la gente de fuera a que los ocupe, pero que respete las reglas, es decir, tengamos una comunidad y un respeto de nuestra cultura interna y no tenerlos aislados.
Mm-hmm. So Mercedes says that she shows some pictures with some empty spaces, and they have those problems there also. They have problems with not a proper design for disabled people, and also they have problems of segregation, urban spatial segregation. And because of that, they are trying with the CPTED methodology project in Cancun, they are trying to make the opposite design. They are trying to open spaces, common spaces that are in gate communities. They are trying to open those spaces to receive more people from outside of the community, but they want to promote also a very clear understanding of the culture of how to use those spaces. That is something very relevant. They want to teach those new members of the community how to use those spaces in a very healthy and safe way.
Y así mismo, Maca, comentar que hacemos censos, saber en principio el tiempo o la edad de la colonia, las personas principalmente que viven ahí, si son de tercera edad, hay niños, qué porcentaje de población tenemos con discapacidad, precisamente para integrarlos y que haya las soluciones y la ciudad sea para todos, sea incluyente.
For that purpose, CPTED Mexico team led by Mercedes, they produce many cadasters. They want to know the age of the people, parts of the community. They want to know the gender, if they are in school or not, they have work or not. They want to produce those cadasters to have much information and scientific evidence to then, after that, design a very proper CPTED methodology intervention.
Thank you, Maca.
Super, thank you, Mercedes. That was really well answered. So there's one more question from Jesus Sotelo. I guess it would be pronounced as Jesus Sotelo. Please pardon my pronunciation if it's wrong. That's what this multiculturalism is all about, tolerance for the other cultures like me. So it says, thank you for the congratulations, but then it says, are there new theoretical developments about inclusivity, multiculturalism, and the third generation CPTED? I think I'll take that, that question. And I would like to say here that there are no new, this is not a new concept to CPTED, and it's not as if we are adding it in the third generation. It is something that is intrinsic to CPTED. There is no debate about it, like I hope my presentation and the two presentations before me might have brought it across to you, that for the CPTED principles of the first and the second generation to really manifest, breathe, and perform, we require multiculturalism. Inclusion is inherent in CPTED concepts. Like I said, that we need eyes on the street, we need natural surveillance. It doesn't matter who those eyes belong to. It doesn't matter what is the color of the skin, what is the language, what is the food type, what is the dressing of that person with those eyes. It is the eyes that matter. Similarly, for the territoriality, similarly for access control, and all principles related to first and second generation of CPTED. You cannot differentiate on any basis. Discrimination, disparity, exclusion do not gel with CPTED. CPTED is based on including everybody socially, culturally, socio-economically. So I hope, I mean, I can't emphasize this enough, I'm sure. And so now I move to another question pending in our question box, and it is from our good friend Carlos. He says that from the CPTED principles, first, second, and third generation, do you think there is any of them of special relevance? So I would like to take that to my panelists. First, I'll go to Vanessa.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Carlos, for this question. For me, the more important, but it's my point of view, of course, is the participatory design. Have all the people around the table and talk about the inclusivity of these people in a project is the main point that the CPTED third generation is putting, and it's the evolution that is the more important evolution that was already done before, but that is always more important in taking more part of the analysis and the project also.
Thank you, Vanessa. And I would take the same question to Mercedes.
Thank you, Manjari. The principle of three generations are necessary and complementary, since the quality of life has indicators of physical, emotional, and community service to create a feeling of belonging. Not important more than complementary all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercedes. Now we have two questions from Mirza Hussain. I will quickly read them out and address them as we do that. How the CPTED concept of territoriality, natural surveillance, and natural access control for a short-term event organized in far from populated area. How the CPTED be helpful in transportation or mobile options such as bus, public transport, which are always moving from one place to another, and people don't know each other and routes are always changing. So, Mr. Hussain, I will request you that this is actually not in keeping with today's topic. This is probably to do more with CPTED and transportation. Believe me, we have a webinar which is slated for this kind of an aspect. And we had discussions on this topic by Makarana Rao herself during the CPTED conference in November, where we discussed public transportation. And we will be taking this up in our future webinars. And I'm sure you will be able to know more about the subject then. Moving on, I will now bring up one of the topics, which is one of the questions which was posted in the registration process again. So how does a practitioner ensure that their project processes and recommendations are inclusive and equitable? How do each of you in your countries counter the argument that CPTED is inequitable and racist? How would you show someone else by your actions that you are equitable? So I think in my presentation, I did address this probably in a very brief and a sort of a very symbolic sort of a way, because you can't possibly go on one topic. But the point is that there is nothing in CPTED that encourages exclusion, that ever says that you discriminate one from the other. In fact, it always just says that anything that is exclusionary, be it gated colonies, be it communities, or any modes of development which are exclusionary, then CPTED is always discouraging them directly or indirectly. How you would show someone else that your actions are equitable? Now, this is something which is ingrained in a person. Either they are equitable or they're not. Either they are racist or they're not. So this is something which is a part of one's own personality and being maybe. And this is, nothing speaks better than one's own action. If you treat all humans, all your employees, all your people equitably, treat them as equals, irrespective of color, gender, whatever be the discriminatory factor, then there is nothing which is louder than that. And if you have those feelings, I'm sure it will translate into your designs. You don't have to put on an effort or an act. It is something which is there in your DNA. And if your designs and your recommendations and your project and your processes are indeed inclusive and not exclusionary in any way, then the CPTED will automatically perform better. And this is very, very well, should I say, encased in the 2 or 3 presentations I have done at the various ICA conferences. One was the Lajpat Nagar Bazaar, where we showed how the different sections of society, of different cultures, of all kinds of group of people are crucial for the security fabric in place. Similarly, for many residential settlements, neighborhoods, and things in Delhi. Can't go into those details now, but yes, you can find details of that on our website. If you remember, you can access that area as members only. Now I will take the same question to Vanessa and Mercedes, starting with Mercedes this time. So Mercedes, please answer this question. How does a practitioner ensure their project processes and recommendations are inclusive and equitable? How do you in your country counter the argument that CPTED is inequitable and racist? And how would you show someone else by your actions that you are equitable? So there are 3 parts to the question.
Thank you. Solamente si me repites la parte final, Maca, por favor.
Y que justamente es eso, Mercedes, que cómo se hace que el diseño sea más equitativo e inclusivo.
Ok, acá en México, recordemos que los equipos de trabajo CPTED son multidisciplinarios. Entonces, para el diseño profesional hay que tener, por supuesto, urbanistas, arquitectos, pero al trabajar el diseño desde el proceso, antes de pasar a diseñar el territorio, en los procesos, integrar a la comunidad, y hay herramientas de diseño participativo, maquetas participativas, así como la nube de los sueños. El dibujo nos da una herramienta previa a poder diseñar o poder imaginarnos y llevarlo a un diseño profesional para establecerlo en el territorio.
Mercedes says that in Mexico, the design teams are very interdisciplinary. So they have different professionals from different areas and different tools of design that make sure that they can have very inclusive designs, and also to consider different opinions and different environmental needs of the different actors of the future project. On the other hand, Mercedes comments that there is an incredible tool that is the Cloud of Dream that myself and Carlos Gutierrez, we designed that tool in the year 2006, but it expanded in all the Hispanic region. Sorry for the comment, Mercy, just to make some context. And in Mexico, we have been starting applying the Cloud of Dreams for so many years, and also with the CPTED Mexico team. And this tool is a very beautiful tool because it considers, for example, the environmental needs of children all around the different Mexico states. And this is something very beautiful.
Thank you. That was really a good example, Mercedes. Vanessa, would you like to add your two?
Yes, I will add something that will take the 3 points at the same time. So I think that as practitioners, CPTED practitioners and consultants and human beings, we must keep always eyes open wide to see ourselves and to question everything that we are doing. So in a way, to not be sure that all the things that we think that could be good will be good. So that's why we work in multi-professional teams and multicultural teams that are always questioning, and always we define as a list of things that in question that we have to answer in all around the process that we are doing to keep in mind what we are looking for. So I think that to ensure that we are trying, because we are always trying to do it the best that we can do, but always keep in mind that we have to question ourselves. This is the good answer. What?
Yeah, absolutely.
That are the opposite one. What they think about this? What is that? So I think that be questioned all the time can ensure you that you are going to take the good way.
Thank you, Vanessa. That was very well answered. We have a very interesting question which has just come in from Ariana Sesams. She says, do CPTED principles utilize or avoid utilizing police and policing, knowing the harm police can create in multicultural communities? How do you discuss this with folks who think increasing police presence is the only way to make a community safer? So who wants to go first on this? Okay, Mercedes, please go. Yeah.
Okay. Bueno, ¿cómo lo trabajamos nosotros? En principio, pensar que la policía, solamente con ella vamos a tener más segura el territorio, no es cierto, porque además no tenemos policía por persona, en principio. 2, es nuestro vecino, es nuestro conciudadano. Y además, nosotros somos corresponsables de la seguridad. Al hablar de corresponsabilidad, es precisamente el espíritu de CPTED, tener más ojos. Nosotros nos convertimos en ojos y ayuda de corresponsabilidad con procesos hacia también nuestros vecinos que tienen la profesión de policía. Si yo me pongo en una situación de riesgo y existen las amenazas en un territorio donde me van a robar, no puedo responsabilizar al policía. Ese es un ejemplo claro. Please, Maca.
Yes, Mercedes highlights 3 main points regarding the question that connects police and CPTED. The first point is that in Mexico, they don't have enough police officers for the extensive territory that they need to cover. So in that sense, they need to complement with the police work other strategies. The second one is that they consider the police officers as another person. Of course, they are uniformed, they are trained, but also they are citizens. And in that sense, they try to have a very respectful relation with the police officers there in Mexico with the CPTED strategies. And at least the third point is that CPTED Mexico tries to highlight the idea of the co-production of safety integral strategies that considers CPTED, but also considers police of proximity, for example, among other strategies.
Thank you, Mercedes. Vanessa, would you like to answer that?
I will just add that police is part of the stakeholders of our project. So we have to work with. We cannot. We have to treat it as citizens, but also as a court that is a stakeholder on the project.
Thank you, Vanessa. So I would just also like to add to what Mercedes said. Yes, we have something similar in India. We have huge populations and very, very few policemen for that. So that is one of the reasons. But also, which is why CPTED promotes in India something called community policing. And the whole concept of CPTED hinges around the fact that every individual is a policeman in CPTED. Everybody with a pair of eyes going around, moving around, is supposed to use the brain behind the eyes and make sure that crime does not happen. If a woman is being molested, then he must intervene. So it puts the onus of crime prevention or security out of the compartmented concept that crime prevention is the sole domain of police or policemen or the police fraternity or the security men. Instead, it puts the onus on the residents, the territorial owners, the people who are responsible or who belong to that place. It's your place, your responsibility to keep it safe, your responsibility to ensure no crime happens, and that you nip any possibility of a crime in the bud. So actually, I would say thank you for this question, Ariana. And I think, yes, it's very, very important that the CPTED principles definitely avoid policing, avoid the pressures on police, or share the pressures of police, or take the onus away from the police to the rest of the citizenry. And definitely the whole concept of CPTED hinges on reducing police presence, and the sometimes, yes, police can be brash, can be exclusive, can be biased or discriminatory in places, especially when you have power. We've seen that happen definitely in India, and definitely when it comes to socio-economic discrimination. So they can target or victimize lower class sections of society indiscriminately, but that's where CPTED comes in. And if somebody in a socio-economically sustainable colony, like the one I showed you, the traditional ones in India, we look after the lower ones, and the lower ones look after the higher ones, and that's how we learn to coexist. We must accept that we can't live without them, and they cannot live without us. And so the only way to live sustainably is to live cohesively, to live together, to include everybody as your own. They could be from your own culture, your own race, your own language, your own country for that matter, even your own species. So nowadays, it's not just humans. You need to include everybody, all the animals, plants, everybody has the same right to this planet Earth as we, me and you. So that is my submission right now. Okay, we've got 2 quick more questions, and I think we can squeeze in probably one. It's from, let me just go through it. It's from Adrian Gracia. It says, in Canada, community policing is supported by the municipality and independent to the police force. Also is organized as Crime Watch program and is volunteer based. Volunteers gather intelligence and is shared with lead person to be channeled to the right area for discussion and implementation of measures. So I'll just ask our 2 panelists here if they would like to share any insights into community policing and in the concept of multiculturalism inclusion. I think that is very, very, very appropriate. Would the either of you want to add something about community policing? Yes? Okay, so while you are thinking, maybe I would just take this opportunity here. So in India, you know, in the 90s, when we had a couple of, I'm talking about Delhi in particular, just to share this with Adrian and Ariane and Percival, who are writing about community policing. So we had a couple of bomb blasts, a couple of serial blasts in the city of Delhi. We had repeatedly, within a day or 2, many blasts. And when the police agencies went about investigating the matter, it was found that the people were holed up in shanties in suburban areas, and the people in the neighborhood found them suspicious, you know, found that they were doing strange acts. They used to have strange people visiting them, blah, blah. So that's when the government of Delhi enacted a program called Neighborhood Watch Scheme. That is probably the first of its kind community policing program, where they said that if you have suspicions about anybody in your locality, your neighborhood, you can go to the police and report it, because they were found to be the best form of community policing, who could keep a watch on their immediate surroundings. And that has really helped in India, especially in the counter-terror program, not just in crime prevention. Something as drastic as counter-terror intelligence is working very well with community policing. So just added that 2 bit. Okay, yes, Mercedes, you can also pitch in here. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Manjari. Sí, al incluir a la policía, no se nos olvide el modelo de policía comunitaria que se debe trabajar. Y en México se trabaja esta parte, además de que tenemos territorios donde con lo que se llama uso y costumbre, los policías son los vecinos. Es decir, conocen el territorio, se busca esta policía también de barrio que lo conocen para evitar desde cuestiones, actos de corrupción, va a cuidar porque ahí está su familia también, son sus vecinos y hay esta cercanía. Entonces, esta policía comunitaria trabaja por estos intereses en pro de una mejor convivencia armónica y se convierte en un mediador. Es como lo trabajamos en México con base en CPTED, y de hecho existe el modelo CPTED policial en México, siguiendo el ejemplo de Chile.
Mercedes says that in Mexico, they have the community police, that is a proximity police, and that is something very, very relevant, because with that scope, the police officer establishes a bond with the neighbors that can trust him or she. They can trust and give very, very critical and sensitive information. For example, regarding about corruption or other criminal activities, drug trafficking. And that model was adapted from the Chilean experience many years ago, and now it's been implemented in Mexico, connecting with CPTED interventions. Just to context, in Chile, we have the same model for so many years also, and we call that proximity police, and it's very connected with something that we call Plan Cuadrante. the quadrant plant, that is a way of organize the territory with very clear areas where the police officers can provide service. That is something very, very successful also in my country, Chile. So thank you, Mercedes.
In Mexico, the same. Thank you, Maria.
I will share a little bit of an experience in Rwanda in Africa, that this is not a police that is in charge of the neighbor, but there is one person in each neighbor that is the referent and is the mediator. If it is one problem in the neighborhood, or it is something that's happened, or something good, or a new person that arrived on the neighbor, this person is the umugudugu. It will be the one that you refer if you have something to ask, something to keep in mind. And in the moment of the COVID lockdown, it was the person that was also receiving all the help of the other, to distribute to the other people that were in need and the people that can give something. So a referent in a neighbor, that could be a special police, or that could be a neighbor that is the referent. Also, it's important in the safer cities.
Thank you, Vanessa. With that, I think we will close for the day. And there were some questions at the time of registration about how to get the membership of ICA and how to connect with us. I will hand over to Matea. She will also share further details about this and other programs at ICA before she closes the session. Thank you very much, ladies. I would first thank our eminent panelists, Dr. Mercedes and Vanessa, for really making a lot of effort, coming out of their comfort zones and speaking in English, and so very well at that. And I will also thank our President, Makarana Rao, for helping us with the translation bit, making it really multicultural. And most of all of you, our esteemed audience from across the globe, I know many of you could not join us because of time difference. I'm sure you will all see this on the recording. And I will now hand it over to our technical specialist, Matea Miniak, our executive director, to close the session for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manjari. And
thank you.
Thank you for the all ladies panel as well. I think this was it was a great thought-provoking discussion, and thank you very much to the panelists or other attendees rather for all the interesting question. I think we could actually have this discussion for another 2 hours, but obviously we need to end. But I'm sure we will have another opportunity to discuss any outstanding points for discussion. So before we close for today, just a few short announcements. So I will just share the screen with you and show you some of those announcements. So we're already talking about the survey. So please do complete the survey so that we know how we could improve the webinar experience for you. And also you will receive a certificate of attendance upon completing the survey. So please do take 10 minutes to complete the survey, and you can just take a QR code, a snapshot right now if you like. Also, we invite you to join the webcast that will be on the topic of extremism and CPTED. This will take place on Thursday, 17th of March. Again, you can register by using a QR code on the screen or using the link. This is the webcast sponsored by our provisional US chapter, so it will be a very interesting and timely discussion as well. We also once again invite you to join us if you're not yet a member of the ICA. Contact us if you have any questions or if you need any assistance with processing your membership. Also, you may know that we have two programs. One is a certification program for individuals, so for CPTED practitioners who wish to have their CPTED competencies recognized. And the other one is course accreditation program intended for course developers who teach CPTED or who wish to develop a CPTED course and have it accredited and recognized by the ICA. Of course, don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on several platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or rather YouTube. So please don't hesitate to join us. I wish to thank all of you again. Make sure to stay safe, be well, and take care of each other. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.